These are images of America, a vast country with diverse landscapes, from icy tundras and snow-capped mountain peaks to endless primeval forests, sprawling prairies, fertile alluvial plains, some of the world's most arid deserts, and white sandy beaches that attract millions of visitors each year. This land also boasts incredibly rich mineral resources. They have come a long and tumultuous way to achieve the vast territory and leading position in many fields as they hold today. Located between the two largest oceans in the world, with an area of up to 9,833,520 square kilometers, the United States is currently the third largest country by land area globally. This is also the world's third most populous country, with a 2023 population of 335,140,000 people, but its population density is relatively low, at only about 34 people per square kilometer. Though vast in scale today, the United States originally began as just 13 colonies of the British Empire. At that time, the total area of this region was only about 700,000 square kilometers, with a population of 2,400,000 people in 1775. From its humble beginnings, this nation has risen powerfully to become the strong economic and military power it is today. So how does this process work? Let's explore it together in just 5 minutes in today's video. The American struggle for independence. Before Europeans arrived, Native American tribes had lived in North America for thousands of years. They both preserved their traditional way of life and built their own unique cultures and civilizations. However, a pivotal turning point occurred in 1492 when Spanish explorer Christopher Columbus. On his journey to find a route to India, he accidentally discovered America, a land entirely located in the Western Hemisphere. Consists of two continents, North America and South America. This event not only marks humanity's discovery of another new continent. Not only that, it also paved the way for European colonialism to sweep in, leading to centuries of exploitation and domination here. A prime example is the British Empire. They have been present in this place since 1607 and continued for over a century afterward. The British used military force to seize many colonies in the region. Among these, we cannot overlook the eastern region of what is now the United States. Later, this land became known as the 13 British colonies in North America, located along the Atlantic coast. In the following years, the British developed and expanded the industrial and commercial economy in this region. At the same time, maintained political, constitutional, and legal systems across the colonies that are similar to each other. However, because they did not want these regions to break away and gain independence, they enacted a series of strict laws, and it was those harsh laws that fueled the growing spirit of resistance among the North American people. To resist oppression and exploitation, the people here established the Continental Congress to discuss issues opposing imperialism and to build an independent, self-reliant China. In 1773, participants in the Boston Tea Party threw crates of tea from merchant ships into the sea to protest the government's excessive taxation policies. This ignited the American War of Independence, which erupted 2 years later. On September 3, 1783, the conflict officially ended, when representatives from the United States, Britain, France, and Spain jointly signed the Paris Treaty. Accordingly, the British officially recognized the independence of their 13 former colonies. And the borders of the young United States were also clearly defined. The territory will stretch from the south in Florida up to the north in the Great Lakes region, and stretching from the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River in the west. At that time, the territory of the United States had an estimated area of approximately 2,144,210 square kilometers. And the population has nearly reached the 3 million mark. Before the American railroad network expanded, the 13 colonies covered an area of only about 700,000 square kilometers, and is home to 2.4 million residents. September 7, 1787, marked a pivotal milestone when the first federal constitution of the United States was officially adopted. On March 4, 1789, this regulation officially took effect. George Washington later became the first president of the United States after being elected. Essentially, during this period, America was primarily focused on the task of national construction and development. Agriculture remains the key economic sector, contributing significantly to the nation's income. Therefore, it is necessary to expand the land area for reclamation. It's similar to searching for natural resources and then distributing them to various entities. It has begun to emerge among the ruling circles in the land of the Stars and Stripes. Not to mention the fact that America, despite having gained independence, but still surrounded by European empires. The reasons above form a solid foundation. To develop and safeguard national security, the U.S. has systematically and progressively implemented numerous strategies. Among these, the policy of territorial expansion was considered the most crucial factor, and seized the lands under the control of European powers. How did the territorial expansion of the United States unfold? With the ambition to expand the nation's territory to its utmost limits, the U.S. government has legalized the country's territorial expansion actions. This passage is constructed based on a theory called Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny. They carried the mission of expanding the territory from the East Coast to the West Coast, stretching from the Atlantic to the Pacific. This concept is also used to call for and drive change. They carried the mission of expanding their territory, stretching from the Atlantic coast all the way to the Pacific shore. This concept is also used to encourage and justify the invasion of other lands. Supporters of this ideology believe that the expansion of America's territory was not only a good thing. It is not only obvious but also the destiny of our nation. Applying this ideology, the American leadership at the time strived to drive the nation's remarkable progress through the expansion of territory in various directions. First, to the west, through the acquisition of the Louisiana Territory. This area covers approximately 2.14 million square kilometers with relatively flat terrain. And it holds a strategic position as it is located right in the heart of the North American continent. Therefore, Louisiana has not only made significant contributions to economic development, while also holding significant strategic importance in terms of both geopolitics and military. The United Kingdom also transferred some territories under its control to Spain, including both Louisiana and Florida. By 1801, when America was entering a period of vigorous development, and continuously expanded its territory by annexing new lands, realizing that controlling Louisiana was ineffective, the Spanish later ceded it to France, the most powerful European power at the time. In the United States, President Thomas Jefferson harbored plans to expand the nation's territory west of the Mississippi River. But the fledgling republic at that time lacked sufficient military strength to challenge the French and seize the Louisiana Territory. Jefferson hoped that French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte would granted the U.S. control over the city of New Orleans, which was a crucial gateway to the Mississippi River. However, despite their efforts, the initial negotiations were unsuccessful. It wasn't until 1803, when the situation of the French army in Europe began to deteriorate, and to prevent the British from seizing Louisiana, just earning money to fund the wars, Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte decided to sell the entire Louisiana Territory to the United States, with the amount of 15 million United States dollars. Each square kilometer of land here costs only about $7. On May 2, 1803, the Louisiana Treaty was officially signed between France and the United States. From that moment on, this land officially became part of the American flag. It's clear that with just $15 million converted, this figure amounts to over $417 million at the current exchange rate. The U.S. has chosen a region of exceptional strategic importance. Not only that, this also helps to double the nation's territory, while also being the key to reinforcing this nation's superpower status, when the entire Mississippi River was finally in their hands. As a result, Americans gained the world's longest natural waterway, facilitating the development of commerce, just like the abundant water supply for agricultural irrigation. Next, they expanded their territory southeastward by occupying Florida. After achieving success from the Louisiana Purchase, America continued to aggressively pursue its territorial expansion strategy. Currently, America has taken full control of the entire Mississippi River basin, but their access to the sea was limited to a narrow area around New Orleans. Taking advantage of Spain's severe weakness after the war with France, the Americans successively captured West Florida and then East Florida. This vast land spanning 170,312 square kilometers holds an exceptionally important position. After a long and arduous negotiation process, the Adamanus Treaty was officially signed in Washington on February 22, 1819. The annexation of Florida expanded the nation's coastline further. Thus, the new border between this country and Spain was established. Under this treaty, two other small territories also fall under the sovereignty of the United States. After many upheavals, the United States compensated Spain with $5 million, equivalent to approximately $124 million at the current exchange rate. During this period, the Americans still directed their gaze toward the north and northwest, where there are lands under British influence. Later, on October 20, 1818, the United States and Britain jointly signed the Treaty of 1818, also known as the London Convention. To address some difficulties, after reaching an agreement, the two countries jointly agreed to establish the 49th parallel north as their common boundary. Specifically, it runs straight westward, starting from Hogs and extending to the Rocky Mountains. Thanks to this border, England ceded a portion of its southern territory to the United States. Meanwhile, the United States also ceded the northernmost area of the Louisiana Territory to Britain. It is clear that the portion of land England received was significantly smaller than the portion ceded to the U.S. Under the agreement, the two countries also agreed to establish a joint control mechanism for the Horizon region in the next 10 years. However, the boundary determination remains unclear. Therefore, this place quickly became a point of contention between Britain and America afterward. It was not until 1846 that the two countries finally reached an agreement to divide this region in half, using the 49th parallel as the boundary. The northern half belonged to Britain, while the southern half of Horizon was assigned to the U.S. This land has an area of approximately 747,317 square kilometers. Currently, this area includes parts of the states of Wyoming and Montana, along with 3 other states, Horizon, Idaho, and Washington. When the northwestern, northern, eastern, and southeastern borders of the United States had been clearly established, the land of the flower flag also began prioritizing territorial expansion toward the southwest, starting with the Texas region. In 1821, this land was under Mexican sovereignty when the country gained independence. However, due to the sparse population, the Mexican government encouraged foreigners to settle there. Most Mexican people do not want to move and live in this area. From then on, people from the southern states of the U.S. flocked to Texas to settle. Not long after, the Americans had spread across the entire region. However, due to various reasons, primarily the disagreement between the Mexican government and the new immigrant community, the situation has changed. They launched a revolt to break away from Mexico and form a self-governing nation. From 1836 to 1845, this territory was known as the Republic of Texas. The newly established republic has declared sovereignty over a vast territory, with a total area of up to 1,007,935 square kilometers. Today, this region encompasses the entire state of Texas along with parts of Wyoming, Colorado, Kansas, New Mexico, and Oklahoma. At the same time, they declared the Rio Grande as the boundary between Texas and Mexico. However, since Mexico did not recognize its independence, territorial disputes quickly arose between the two sides. Mexico asserts that the border must be defined along the New Z's River. Although it had become an independent nation, most Texans desired to join the United States. On December 29, 1845, the vast territory of Texas officially joined the United States, becoming the 28th state of the Union. This incident strained U.S.-Mexico relations and sparked a 2-year-long war, causing severe damage. The war only ended when the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signed on February 2, 1848. Being in a weaker position, Mexico was forced to cede a region known as the Mexican Cession to its neighboring country, an area of approximately 1,370,000 square kilometers. Today, this region includes parts of Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and the entire states of Utah, Nevada, and California. This is the 3rd largest state in the U.S. This nation also renounces all claims to sovereignty over Texas and recognizes the Rio Grande as part of the border between the two countries. In return, the U.S. government paid its neighboring country $15 million, equivalent to $597 million at current exchange rates. Additionally, the Mexican government has also agreed to settle the outstanding debts currently held by U.S. citizens. It must be emphasized that after the war, Mexico was left in a state of exhaustion. Its treasury was depleted, its military was in disarray, and it constantly faced the threat of foreign invasion. This facilitates the Flower Gate region in completing its southwestern border, particularly regarding the cession of the Kasdan territory. This is an area spanning 76,800 square kilometers along the border between the two countries, now located within the U.S. states of Arizona and New Mexico. President Franklin Pierce subsequently sent James Gadsden to Mexico to negotiate, resulting in the treaty being signed on December 30, 1853. This country agreed to sell the disputed territory to the U.S. after many years, for a price of $10 million US, equivalent to over $408 million at current exchange rates. In just 8 years, Mexico had to cede a vast territory of 2,454,735 square kilometers to the United States, equivalent to more than half of its land area. By 1853, the United States had essentially completed its continental territorial expansion. With 48 contiguous states located in the heart of North America, between Mexico and Canada. This change also allows the country's territory to border 2 major oceans simultaneously, the Pacific and the Atlantic. Although the nation's territory expanded into many new lands, this further deepened the conflicts between the northern and southern regions of the United States. The disparity in economic development models along with the imbalance in budget allocation between the 2 regions has led to increasingly heightened tensions. And it erupted into a civil war that lasted 4 years, from 1861 to 1865. After this period, the country entered a Reconstruction era, pushing forward reforms to develop the economy and stabilize politics and society. The issue of territorial expansion continues to be raised. The United States continues to relentlessly expand its sphere of influence to compete with Western powers. Therefore, this nation not only seeks to control inland territories but also aims to extend its influence to the coastal regions of the Pacific. In 1867, the United States annexed a new territory located in the northwest of North America, completely separated from the nation's mainland, Alaska. This is the territory they purchased from Russia for $7.2 million, equivalent to over $153 million at current exchange rates. Among the newly added lands to the Flower Country, Alaska is the largest, covering an area of over 1.7 million square kilometers. The purchase of Alaska not only expanded America's territory to the ocean but also brought abundant natural resources. Moreover, this is considered a graceful move, paving the way for the next 3 decades. In 1898, the Americans seized a strategically located archipelago in the Pacific and annexed it as the 50th state of the United States. The Hawaiian Islands have a total area of approximately 28,311 square kilometers. At its core, the doctrine of manifest destiny proved its validity as it emerged from the original 13 colonies along the Atlantic coast. This nation expanded its territory eastward all the way to the Pacific Ocean, spreading its influence across Asia from there. By the end of the 19th century, America had risen to become the world's leading capitalist power. The great powers began competing for colonies in the Caribbean and Pacific regions, starting with the Spanish-American War. Finally, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines were ceded to the United States. Although Cuba gained independence, the country became dependent on its northern neighbor. During this period, the Washington administration also continued to reach agreements with Germany on the division of interests. To seize the eastern part of the Samoan Islands, this territory was later named American Samoa. In 1903, the Republic of Panama officially granted the United States control and use of the 1,432 square kilometers Panama Canal Zone. This area later split the country of Panama into 2 parts for many years. Additionally, on March 31, 1917, Denmark officially sold the Virgin Islands to the United States. Priced at $25 million in gold, equivalent to over $614 million in today's value. After enduring excessive pressure from the United States. However, since World War II, in the face of a rapidly changing global landscape, just like the colonial liberation movement that erupted across the world, the United States appears to have adjusted its policy to strengthen its position and maintain its influence through economic, political, and military activities in various territories, instead of merging them into the mainland. That is precisely why this nation decided to grant independence to the Philippines in 1946. And in 1977, the Panama Canal Zone was returned to this country. To ensure our country continues to grow and prosper, we must accelerate economic development. It can be affirmed that territorial expansion played a crucial role in the economic development of the United States. The sector that benefits the most is agriculture. Among crops, cotton stands out with exceptional growth, because this is the primary source of raw materials supplied to the European market. The cotton growing area in the U.S. expanded from North Carolina, a state along the Atlantic coast. To the west, it stretches all the way to Texas. Additionally, wheat gradually became the dominant crop. When the territorial border extends deep into the inland region, occupies the majority of the vast plains and grasslands in the western region. In 1859, states such as Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and Wisconsin were established in the newly acquired territories. These areas have all become the largest wheat-producing regions in the country. Additionally, America also has vast grasslands and prairies stretching across the Great Plains of North America. Originally a land situated between the Mississippi River to the west and the Rocky Mountains to the east. With favorable weather and abundant water sources, they have spurred the robust growth of the livestock industry. As a result, products like meat and milk are widely distributed across the country. Additionally, with a coastline stretching 153,646 kilometers and numerous scattered archipelagos like scattered stars. This also contributes to the growth of the fisheries sector, as fishing grounds continue to expand. Along with the development of the agricultural sector, the territorial expansion brought abundant natural resources to serve the development of the industry. To help you visualize better, currently, the total value of natural resources in Cow-2 region is estimated to reach up to 45 trillion United States dollars. Among these, the reserves of copper, gold, and oil and gas are assessed to be extremely abundant. One of the most notable events in the United States between 1848 and 1855. That was the California Gold Rush. Some estimates suggest that the amount of gold mined is worth up to $81 million. Equivalent to 3.31 billion United States dollars at the current exchange rate. Additionally, petroleum was also discovered in the United States in 1859. Currently, 32 out of the 50 U.S. states are exploiting this resource, along with the small islands off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. It can be said that the discovery of abundant mineral resources in the U.S. has fully met domestic production demands. Thanks to abundant domestic resources, the U.S. does not need to import raw materials from abroad. This helps reduce input costs, giving American goods a competitive advantage in the international market. At the same time, it helps address domestic financial difficulties and swiftly overcome economic crises. This is one of the key factors driving the remarkable growth of the U.S. economy. To catch up with Europe's economic growth rate and rise to become an industrial powerhouse in a short period of time. At the top of the world in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. On the other hand, territorial expansion has brought positive impacts to the economy. This also contributes to the development of transportation infrastructure, particularly the waterway and railway systems. In the early days, the Americans began their journey of exploring new lands. The rivers and lakes were interconnected, forming a network of waterways. This system facilitates easy and low-cost goods transportation to densely populated areas and international commercial ports. The Mississippi River and its tributaries have helped connect a large portion of the United States for international markets without excessively high shipping costs. When inland rail lines began to emerge, the year 1825 marked a significant milestone when the world's first railway line was opened in England, the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. Yet just 4 years later, the first railroad in America was named the Baltimore and Ohio. The project was completed and officially put into operation in 1830. From this point onward, the construction of railroads in America entered its most vigorous phase of development. The golden age of the American railroad industry coincided with the peak of World War I. At that time, the total length of the country's railway system reached nearly 600,000 kilometers, accounted for nearly half of the total global railway length at that time. It is evident that, when compared to capitalist countries in Europe, the United States emerged relatively late compared to many other nations, which is why its position on the international stage is not yet firmly established. Though this country has gained independence and broken free from colonial rule, it still faces countless challenges. The European powers are encircling and threatening our fledgling independence. However, by expanding their territory in the 19th century, not only contributing to the remarkable development of the country's economy, at the same time, this also helps the U.S. assert its pivotal position on the global geopolitical chessboard. From then on, they gradually became more deeply involved in various fields worldwide, and developed into a leading world power as it is today. Social life is constantly evolving. America's growing expansion has deeply impacted many aspects of society. First and foremost, it had a profound impact on the abolition of slavery during the Reconstruction era. Because if this regime is not abolished, expanding territory means expanding slavery. Moreover, territorial expansion not only contributed to population growth, at the same time, this also contributes to creating diversity in the population structure. Additionally, territorial expansion also contributed to population growth. At the same time, this also contributes to creating diversity in the population structure. That is why the United States is now regarded as one of the most ethnically diverse nations in the world, according to data released by the U.S. Census Bureau in 2021. White people of European descent are the largest ethnic group, accounting for approximately 57.8% of the population. Next are the Lat people, accounting for 18.7% of the population. Black people account for 12.4% of the population, while the figure for Asian people is 6%. Indigenous people make up only 1.1% of the population. Alongside the enormous benefits, the growing population has reduced the living space of the GRI ethnic communities. With the massive wave of migration from Europeans, overexploitation and lack of control have led to increasingly severe environmental pollution. From then on, they gradually pushed the indigenous natives deeper into the dense forests, leading them to gradually become extinct due to the loss of habitat and food sources. Before European colonists arrived, North America was home to approximately 7 million indigenous people. 2/3 of them were people living in the territory that is now part of the United States. Not stopping there, the Nguyen dynasty court also had to face widespread secessionist movements across the country. About 12 out of the 50 states in this country are seeking to secede and gain independence. Either establish a new state or merge into an existing one. First, we must mention Texas, which was once an independent nation 188 years ago. In recent years, some local residents have wanted to reclaim that status, when supporting Texas's secession from the United States in the independence movement. Additionally, activists in the state of New Mexico and the southeastern region of Colorado, while also encouraging regions to consider the possibility of withdrawing from the U.S. and will advance into Texas if independence is achieved. Additionally, the campaign to liberate Louisiana was launched in July 2024, or part of a union of states in the central U.S. Territorial expansion ambitions in the modern era. It is evident that territorial expansion in the past has brought the United States significant advantages and the country's development potential. It seemed as though this process had ended. But by 2019, this issue had once again become a hot topic. During former President Donald Trump's tenure, the U.S. equation set has become a hotly debated topic, and the topic of the U.S. president has become a hotly debated issue. Thus, the U.S. presidency has become a hotly debated topic, and the topic of the U.S. president has become a hotly debated issue. When former President Donald Trump was in office, has openly declared the intention to acquire an autonomous territory belonging to the Kingdom of Denmark. That is Greenland, the largest island in the Arctic Ocean, with an area of up to 2,166,086 square kilometers. If this deal succeeds, at that time, the territory of the United States would expand to 11,999,606 square kilometers, thereby helping them surpass Canada to become the world's second largest country by area. Although most of this island's area is covered by ice, its unique allure that drew President Trump, because it has an extremely important strategic geographical location. Currently, Thule Air Base is still operational, having been built in 1951. This is considered the farthest outpost of the United States, located deep within the Arctic Circle. This military base is considered a strategically vital position in the face of threats from Russia and China. Additionally, Greenland is located along a crucial maritime route, the Northwest Passage. This is a 1,450-kilometer route running along the northern coast of North America. The passage navigates through Canada's Arctic archipelago to connect with the Pacific Ocean, the Arctic Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. It can be affirmed that Canada is the country that benefits the most from the Northwest Passage. Develop into a sustainable transport route. This corridor will facilitate the development of the northern regions of Canada, bringing enormous economic and military benefits to this country. If they can maintain sovereignty over this area, the Canadian government considers the Northwest Passage to be internal waters under its sovereignty. However, the US and some European countries consider this an international strait, and have the right to pass through without needing permission or paying any fees. Therefore, owning Greenland could provide Washington with many strategic advantages. Increased presence at this strategic maritime route, especially as the competition for influence in the Arctic grows increasingly fierce. However, most people on the island of Greenland do not want to sell their homeland. Though everyone knows Greenland is the most remote island in the world, and is one of the most remote and least traveled regions, but the living environment here is a paradise for the island's residents. The Danish government has also officially stated that the issue Donald Trump raised sounds quite strange. They have absolutely no intention of selling their sovereign island, although the Greenland deal has not yet reached its conclusion. But in the near future, this issue may be revisited. And that is the journey that shaped the vast America we know today. Hello everyone, see you in the upcoming videos.